With the year winding to a close, the Game Awards right around the corner, and because I want to continue to make more scripted and thought out content on my channel, I thought it was the perfect time to drop my first ever top 5 video with what were my top 5 favorite games of 2023. You could tell the production issues that literally plagued the video game industry for the last couple years have finally started to smooth over, and every company kind of started to release all of their delayed or extended production games all at once, resulting in this crazy year of dozens of fantastic games. And in such a crazy year, it's kind of hard to pick just a few, but I'm going to try my best here in this video. Now, here are some of the rules I used for my list that are pretty simple, but I just wanted to make it clear to everyone what were some of the rules I used when I was considering games for this list. First, obviously, the game must have released in 2023. Today's all about games that came out this year. Second, I must have actually played the game for it to be considered. So while I'm sure you're going to see Spider-Man 2 come up in just about everyone's Game of the Year contenders and top game countdowns of the year, you won't see it in this video because I don't actually have a PS5, so I wasn't able to play it, despite the fact that I bought the collector's edition of the game. Third, I didn't consider ports for this list. Ghost Trick Phantom Detective was a phenomenal game that I played for the first time this year on its new PC release, but it originally released on the DS back in like 2010, and I think technically the PC port is like a port of the iOS version of the game or something similar to that. Then you also have the Persona games that ported to new consoles for the first time at the beginning of this year. So just to simplify the list in a year that already has so many contenders for great games, I kind of decided that ports not eligible. That covers our limited rule set, just to give you an idea or what I may or may not have been considering for the cut of the video. And that's why the greatest obscure indie game of all time that you definitely played this year and loved so much was not on my list either. I also streamed pretty much every game I played this year, and I definitely tried almost every single major video game release this year too. In fact, I really can't think of too many games I played outside of stream this year besides like Here's the Storm and Genshin. So if you really want to see exactly what games I would have considered for the list, just take a quick scroll through my live tab on the channel and you'll see just about every single game I played this year. Now with introduction, rules, and explanations and all that boring stuff out of the way, let's get to what we're all here for and start my countdown of my favorite games of the year, starting with my number 5 on the list. While Sega has continuously dropped the ball with Jet Set Radio and having abandoned the franchise for nearly a decade at this point, indie developer Team Reptile has come to fill the rollerblading graffiti artist niche, and they delivered with Bomb Rush Cyberpunk. This game is Jet Set Radio and everything but the name. It has an iconic, funky soundtrack and that beautiful cel-shaded art style from the early 2000s, before this type of design got completely hijacked by the Borderlands franchise after Sega gave up on it. Its colorful and vibrant cast of legally distinct Jet Set Radio characters and environments at times can definitely give you that "we have Jet Set Radio at home" vibe that hits the borderline between homage and just a straight up ripoff. But it differentiates itself in many small subtle ways to be distinct enough as its own thing. It has multiple methods of traversal in addition to your standard rollerblades, by letting you choose to ride a BMX bike or skateboard around town too. And while they all basically function the same, it does tweak the formula enough as they each have kind of slight differences to your gameplay. The game features more boss fights than you'd expect, but they're pretty solid in design and for the most part they're pretty fun. Bomb Rush also has a larger focus on fighting in general than JSR, with enemies frequently appearing as you cause havoc in the streets like a GTA or Saints Row type mix, and you need to swap characters or change outfits to drop the heat and lose the cops, which feels like a unique take on the heat system. Rather than just hiding from them, the cops are on the lookout for a specific character and outfit, and I appreciate that variety in how you kind of lose the cops in this sense. The final boss mechanic in Jet Set Radio Future, where you're stuck in a crazy dream world for a single mission, also gets fully fleshed out in this game, where you have multiple dream sequence levels that really push your skills and take your movement abilities to the next level, in a way that feels like a Mario 3D platformer on wheels. It's trippy as all hell, but feels satisfying when you complete the ride, and you're rewarded with another story segment after to wrap everything into a nice package for the player in a tight-knit experience that I really enjoyed the hell out of. Admittedly, what prevents me from putting this game up higher on this competitive list is it does have some little hiccups that you get with indie games as compared to fully staffed and developed AAA games, such as a relatively basic UI that limits features and unnecessarily complicates basic tasks, like switching between characters, or simply navigating the map of the game. Regardless, Bomb Rush Cyberpunk is enough fun, cool, and groovy enough to brute force its way past these little nitpicks, and still make it into my top 5 games for the year. But we've still got a ways to go, so let's take a look at number 4. I'm sure you've heard enough about Zelda Tears of the Kingdom this year already, so you don't need me to tell you any more about it, because this is probably the most basic choice on my list. So, you can take away my small-time YouTuber has a niche perspective card that you might have thought I was cooking by having Bomb Rush Cyberpunk on this list. But, as someone who completely skipped Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom felt like a new and crazy ride to me. There are so many different ways to approach this game. It really feels like one of the few games that gives you true freedom in what you want to do, while giving the illusion of a limited scope, with carefully marked quest objectives so you don't ever feel paralyzed by choice on what to do next, despite having so many choices and the freedom to do whatever you want to do next. I played Tears of the Kingdom as mostly a big puzzle game. Running from shrine to shrine, I had a blast tackling them all, and even ended up playing this game a lot off-stream to try and get as much in of this game as I could, exploring the whole map and searching far and wide for these different shrines, with each one feeling more rewarding than the last to find and complete, whether it was in the sky, or on the mainland, or even if I had to brave through the dark depths, it was still worth it each time. The infinite possibilities of the fuse mechanic and the different equipment pieces in this game gives you a funny feeling of, was I supposed to do that? Every time you solve a puzzle or win a fight, and I just love the vibe that the game brings. The developers respect the player's creativity enough to just let you do whatever you want, in a way that few games will let you. There are no wrong answers and no set way to do things. The game might occasionally set suggestions so the player isn't completely blind, but it never enforces them like so many games try to do. The game isn't without its flaws. It has an incredibly clunky UI menu to navigate that ends up occupying probably a good 10% of your total game time to move through. And, not to mention Nintendo's freaky allergy to letting the main character of their games speak or emote at all. So the most emotional, heartbreaking thing can be happening right in front of you, and Link just hits you with a 1,000-yard stare and it sucks you out of the moment. Combat is a little odd, and the spirits mostly just get in the player's way, but again, the freedom to kind of do whatever you want lets you bypass most of these annoyances once you create your own flavor of cheese to get through most of these fight encounters. There is a reason you hear everyone talk about this game, and it was pretty deserving of all the hype. It looks as good as you can expect a Switch game to look at this point, and manages really to not have any performance issues despite whatever wacky thing you've got cooking with the fuse mechanic, which is pretty impressive. I really enjoyed my time in Hyrule, and as someone who has played very little Zelda in general, it piqued my interest in exploring the franchise more. But that'll have to wait for another time, as we've got to keep moving on this list to my number 3.
Rules are made to be broken. Component damage.
What if Genshin Impact was turn-based? Star Rail is all the addicting gameplay of Genshin, but condensed into a bite-sized package. And I actually really enjoy how you can kind of just pick up the game for like an hour or two outside of the big limited time events, play it for just a little bit, and then be done for the day. And I think that's kind of what keeps me coming back, is that I can just get these tiny little bite-sized snackings of the game, it's fun, and then I'm done. but that little bite-sized package is never satisfying enough for me to overplay the game and then get sick of it. So I just keep coming back and keep enjoying myself. It feels pretty free-to-play friendly in comparison to my limited gacha game experience, with free updates and pulls coming regularly, and I've never really struggled to get what I wanted in this game by not paying anything. And even without spending, the game constantly feels like it's getting more things to do. Of course, if you play Genshin, you're already familiar with that constant update cadence of free content. The animations and art style are beautifully over the top, and the soundtrack is a bop when I do decide to actually play the game in full focus, as it more or less is the game I most passively play in my collection. But I can appreciate its own small spins on the turn-based combat mechanics. By throwing in ultimate abilities to mix up the turn order, you feel like you can actively engage in the combat at all times. But if I didn't have Silver Wolf though, I'm not sure how much I'd appreciate the large variety of element types and the unique toughness mechanic that gives enemies a pseudo shield when in combat if you don't have their matching element type. The lore in this game is an expansive ocean of content that I am too afraid to swim out beyond the shore of. You got Rainbow Arbiter this, Aeon of the Hunt that, and the Space Chinese Court of whatever. Star Rail at times feels like the writers had a required word quota to reach with every single mission of the game, and I cannot keep up with all that anymore. To me, this is the biggest issue of the game, but everything else is really addicting and a lot of fun, and it's a great time. If Genshin was too much for you, this game is probably right up your alley. I definitely recommend trying this game out. Now there's another perfect opportunity here where if I was sponsored, I would tell you all about my favorite nurse, Natasha.
Nice to meet you. I'm Natasha, an underworld doctor. Feeling sick?
But since I'm not sponsored, we have to move on to number 2 on my list.
トムスはキャプテンオリマーウィンドゲロヌルドルピンレブリイマラソドルマスソソンロスデリー
The release of Pikmin IV this year caused me to go on a journey, experiencing each of the mainline Pikmin games as I got myself hyped up for the release of the 4th, and man, was it a journey worth experiencing. For those that don't know, Pikmin is a unique spin on the RTS game genre, where you command and throw these little weird plant creatures to their death to collect objects from big to small to previously alive beings to power your toy spaceship that is capable of faster-than-light travel. And if that doesn't get you interested in the game, I don't know what will. The world actually nails the cutesy vibe with disturbingly dark undertones fantastically, and avoids the weird cringe levels of some copy pastas that lead with a basic, "you don't know how dark I actually am" kind of message. One minute you're in someone's backyard barbecue, and the next you're in an underground pipe system, checking for spiders falling from the ceiling to ruin your day. And maybe after that, you're in an aquarium, jumping between plastic islands. The variety is truly staggering, the vast level designs. You can get fun environmental storytelling while you navigate around, and Pikmin IV fits the perfect balance of fun collectathon gameplay but tense combat. When you encounter a creature to fight, and you need to wrangle your crew together to save them from their own dumb decisions without your leadership, and outplay your enemy at the same time. As someone who's worked in people management for the last decade, this hits a perfect mix for me on fun and immersive gameplay, because I really feel like I'm in the game. There's also a time management aspect which I love, and while it isn't as important in 4 as it was in the original games, if you choose to take it seriously, it's another layer of fun to strategize what exactly you can get done in a single day. And if you lose track of time, you can quickly find yourself in danger if you've wandered too far away from your base, and you can get punished for completely ignoring this time management aspect. And there are plenty of upgrades available to the player to help manage and deal with this problem, and most upgrades available to you in the game do feel like they actually impact how the game is played, and it's not always in a lame, "this now does +5 more damage" sort of way. But a lot of the upgrades actually add meaningful new mechanics and features to how you play. The game handicaps itself in the player a little bit by only letting you pick 3 at a time of your diverse Pikmin collection, but the levels are designed so you will rarely ever need more than 3 types in an area, which isn't a big deal. I'm torn on this, as it's actually a solid design choice, since to add more Pikmin obstacle variety, they'd probably just add 1 or 2 more required puzzles to the level for that specific Pikmin type. But then my complaint would just be, why do I need to grab pink Pikmin for just this one dumb thing, instead of worrying about only getting 3 Pikmin types in a level? So I think the choice to create more focused levels with fewer but tighter puzzles is the better overall design choice. A lesser of two evils, if you will. Speaking of a Pikmin, you also get a big pet dog for the first time in this series, who's basically just an upgradable Pikmin that can do a bit of everything, and late game he kinda breaks the difficulty curve by being so strong. So, if you're looking for a bit more of a challenge like the original Pikmin games, ignore the dog, treat the time management more seriously, and actually try to use the pink Pikmin, because good luck, I've got no idea how you're supposed to use them in this game. Overall, the entire Pikmin franchise is a blast, and I had a great time playing through Pikmin IV this year. If you completely missed this series back in the GameCube era like I did, all of the good ones have been ported to the Switch, so you should really do yourself a favor and check them all out. And while I'm here recommending games to you, I think this is the perfect place to build up hype for the end of the video and my #1 game of 2023, by taking a minute here to stop, slow it down, and reflect on some of my honorable mentions that just didn't make the list this year.
Let's go!
Okay,
Roger that.
here I come.
Let's do this!
It's my Leave it to me. Persona 5 Tactica.
This game released basically the same week I started my new job, so I haven't had a whole lot of time to dedicate to playing it. I couldn't in good conscience put it on the list, having only beaten the first kingdom so far, though the limited time I've had with it has been a blast, and I still almost placed it 5th because of how much fun I've been having with it in the early game. But who's to say if it falls off later? No spoilers please, but I couldn't justify putting it in there without having beaten the game. I am planning on doing a full video review of this game later on once I do beat it, but for now, know that I've been enjoying my time with it. This is truthfully the biggest game of the year. It has a refreshing depth of content and a crazy level of storytelling, player choice, and interactivity you won't see in other games for a long time. Personally, I did love playing in the world up to Act 1, but ended up watching more playthroughs via streamers I enjoy than playing it myself, since I got a little paralyzed by having too many different choices to pick from. Too many quests, too many characters, too many different things I wanted to do, it all felt kinda overwhelming to me. But if you're the type who wants to put 300 some hours into a game with every run feeling different than the last, this is the game for you. Really, this might be one of the most ambitious games of all time. It's awesome, but a game I ended up having more fun watching other people play than playing it myself. The amount of choices just got too stressful, and I really enjoyed the experience of watching people play it and reacting to the story unfold. Na 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 na. Katamari is possibly one of the most unique games to ever come out, and in a year of crazy remakes and remasters, I think We Love Katamari Reroll Royal Revere is an underdog that should have gotten more love. It's a remaster of the second game in the series from the PlayStation 2 era, with new levels, new characters to play as, and a fleshing out of the backstory of everyone's favorite King of all Cosmos. Rolling your Katamari around the colorful environments, the wacky gameplay, fun level restrictions, and trying to pick up everything in the whole universe to remake it all in the King's image for the Katamari fans is a trip that you have to experience. If you've never played a Katamari game before, you absolutely need to, and this is a perfect time to get into it. Dead Space 2023, or Dead Space Remake, whatever EA wants to call it, is an amazing redo of the original game from back in 2008. It thankfully goes beyond just a graphical overhaul and adds new depth to the story by tying in elements that were previously introduced in the series in Dead Space 2, now that they have a better vision for the story they want to tell, and the original is far better for it. Space's most unlucky engineer, Isaac Clarke, gets his voice in this game, and is now an active character instead of a silent protagonist, with a unique dynamic feature I wish more games would do, that really stood out to me, and I'm not sure if a lot of people noticed it, so I wanted to talk about it real quick here. Isaac's dialogue will change in cutscenes based on his health, which made everything feel so much more immersive to me and more scary for it. In an early scene when talking with his team about the necromorphs, if you have high health, Isaac will logically talk through about how the crew that have been turned are beyond their help, and they need to stop them in order to survive. If you're on low health, the more strained and panicked Isaac will cry out about how they've just gotta fucking kill all the necromorphs. There are more situations like this in the game, and it's a cool way to get into the player's head incredibly subtly. Obviously, if the player's getting their ass kicked, and Isaac just starts swearing and panicking about everything, you're gonna feel that vibe from him. But if you've got health and you're doing good, you're gonna want to hear Isaac's thoughts and understand what he's going through, because you've got some breathing room to think about everything that's going on. A small thing to highlight, but I think that should really tell you all you need to know about the level of detail put into this that goes beyond a small remake. Also, the other guns besides the pistol are actually viable to use now, so the game is even more fun than it was originally, and it was already really fun. Dead Space 2023 Dead Space Remake is an amazing bar-setting remake, and I hope this means EA might actually revive this cancelled series now.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
Another big remake of a classic game for the list this year, Capcom continues their run of remakes with Resident Evil 4. As one of the first in the genre for third-person shooters, and widely regarded as not only one of the best games in the Resident Evil series, but one of the best games in the genre entirely, this game had big shoes to fill, and it didn't disappoint. The gameplay and level design largely remains the same, but optimized for the current generation. Leon can parry incoming attacks, actually move while aiming down the sights, and doesn't need to quick turn anymore because you don't move like Leon is a robot being operated via tank controls anymore. Unfortunately, you craft ammo now instead of just getting to find the ammo for the guns you have on you, but with new weapons in the game, I suppose that's the price we pay. The Blue Medallion secret mission that was in like 2 areas in the original game has been transformed into full-on side quests in the remake, including that Blue Medallion target practice is now in multiple areas, there's secret bosses, there's an expanded shooting range, and there's even more to be really fleshed out, and give you more to do in between running and gunning your way to the next room for a change. Resident Evil 4's story still has all the same major points in the remake, but the characters are reworked and the relationship between Leon and Ashley is significantly improved. She's much less of an annoyance this time around, and has a very cute back and forth with Leon throughout the game that genuinely makes her and Leon both feel like real people and not a walking escort objective. No longer just screaming for help, Ashley watched Elizabeth in Bioshock Infinite and realized she can help the guy trying to rescue her. With her health bar gone, she'll attempt to participate in fights by setting enemies on fire and calling out what's going on around her, rather than just screaming for Leon when both he and the player are obviously aware of shit hitting the fan. She even gets a mission where you can play as her that's handled much better than the MJ missions from Spider-Man, for example, and it feels like it belongs in the game because Ashley is handled so well throughout the story. It doesn't break the pacing and feels naturally included. Luis and Krauser also get more development and backstory, though it's not as high quality and as major as Ashley. It still is an appreciated improvement on these original characters. Leon's new one-liners honestly are even cheesier and more badass than in the original, and I really appreciate that they kept the 90s action hero shtick that really makes the whole package of this game so much fun. Ada's new development, however, is locked behind her Separate Ways DLC campaign that honestly should have been included in the base game. Because having to pay for a character campaign where said character gets less development than Ashley, who is only included in 1 Resident Evil game, seems kinda wild. and as a major player in the franchise, Ada definitely gets done dirty in this game, both in the writing and in her portrayal. Though, I definitely think her new look is great, and the haters of her sweater game are crazy. The dual cliffhanger ending for her maybe is setting her up as a big wild card, so who knows. Maybe this take ages poorly, but I think Ada deserves better than being the weakest link in this otherwise top-notch remake of the classic. With graphics so realistic, you can see the individual strands of Leon's hair, and a cool aesthetic from top to bottom with every level environment. Solid gunplay, and well-written characters inside a storied franchise that normally goes off the rails. The Resident Evil 4 remake is one of the best games of the year. But, since it is a remake, it felt a little wrong officially including it in my top games list, since it isn't really a big risk by Capcom. Remakes of successful and popular games that won multiple Game of the Year awards, in its original release year, mind you, are kinda no-brainers. But it is too good to go without mentioning it at all. So, it features as the crown jewel of my honorable mentions for this year. With the first 4 on our list down and all the honorable mentions mentioned, it's time to get back to our top 5 countdown with my number 1 best game of 2023. Fire Emblem Engage is my favorite game of 2023. I started a pretty big Fire Emblem kick at the end of last year by replaying 3 Houses, then trying 3 Hopes, then Fire Emblem Warriors, then Awakening, and then Birthright, which finally built up to my Engage journey. This game serves as an anniversary of sorts to the whole franchise, and it pays fitting tribute to its predecessors while breaking new and interesting ground in both gameplay mechanics and characters. The story isn't treading any new ground, and it develops more like a corny Saturday morning cartoon, but honestly, I loved Saturday morning cartoons growing up, so I ate up every bit of the cheesiness of this game's story. The fact that there is a story-related reason for the protagonist's crazy Yu-Gi-Oh! Style anime hair? That is peak fiction, my friends, and if you don't see that, I'm sorry, I can't explain how to have good taste to you. Speaking of anime hair, the art style for this game is amazing. Every character looks unique, cool, clearly conveys what type of character they are, and no one really repeats any archetypes or design choices despite there being so many characters in the game. The emblems, the spirit versions of major characters from past Fire Emblem games, look ethereal and mythical, fitting of their status as iconic and legendary characters of the franchise. And the effects and combat animations when you engage with them for battle, and their signature moves look so flashy, it is gorgeous. This is one of the few times nowadays where I actually had so much fun, I went back and played a game on the highest difficulty. Off stream, I started my first ever Fire Emblem Maddening run, and it was still a blast. The level of customization on how you want to level up characters and train them with new skills is surprisingly in-depth, and really lets you take on each map in your own way. Except map 3 in the DLC missions, that one is the worst. Again, that customization between your vast crew of characters, the various classes and weapons, the different emblems and bracelets, this game is crazy fun and really lets you get into the nitty-gritty details and strategize however you want on fun maps with engaging, pardon the pun, enemy encounters beyond just throwing reinforcements at you and calling it a day. Engage has everything I want in a game. Fun characters I care about, interesting supports and relationships between those characters, a colorful art style, compelling gameplay, a great soundtrack, high levels of player customization, a story to hook me in, and massive fan service for things I already like. This game feels like it was almost specifically made to cater towards my interests and tastes, and I'm a sucker for it. I know Intelligent Systems rarely makes sequels anymore to their games, and goes for a more Final Fantasy style. Each game is a standalone, but I'd take an Engage 2 with even more fan service in a heartbeat. I loved this game, and proudly say it's my favorite game of 2023. With that, it's all over. I hope you guys enjoyed my first ever top 5 video, and if you've got any feedback for me, I'd love to hear it. This is just kind of continuing the trend from my Five Nights at Freddy's series review video, where I kind of want to get some more scripted content to you guys, and get some higher effort videos out there for all of you to watch, and just kind of be able to express more of what I'm thinking by really kind of writing down all my thoughts and hammering it out in a video like this. What were your favorite games of 2023? Let me know in the comments. I'm kind of curious to see what games I might have missed out on this year, and as always, you can also drop them in my game recommendations on the Discord server. Link for that is in the description below as usual. Anyway, that's all I'm here for. Thanks for watching, you guys. If you made it this far into the video, be sure to drop a like. I'd appreciate that. And I'll see you guys in the next one.
I'm the 13th emblem. The fire emblem?